What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and this is gonna be a banner review of Edelgard's Legendary Hero banner. So really was not expecting her right now. I know many people were expecting Celica, but at this point I've kind of given up on that whole expectation thing because every time it's really exhausting to just get disappointed again and again. So I honestly was not really expecting anyone, and I really didn't think they would have Edelgard like right before Choose Your Legends. I thought they would take their time and then release the time skip versions, but apparently not. And she's kind of inevitable like all of the Three Houses Lords. Like all of them are going to be legendary heroes at some point, and I expect Rhea and Violet to be mythic heroes because of their backstory, of course. So Edelgard is an axe armor unit, and she's a fire pair up legendary hero. So she's pretty nice for Allegiance battles if you don't really have any kind of fire legendary hero. And axe armors like have a lot of competition because we have a lot of those, but Edelgard is still a bit unique because of the things that she could do in the player phase, which other like axe armors cannot really do. So her weapon is a mirror, which gives her +3 attacks, so essentially a 19 might weapon, and if she's not adjacent to any ally, then inflicts -6 defense and -6 attack debuff on foe during the combat, and the foe cannot make a follow-up attack. So this kind of effect is super powerful because it can be stacked up with visible debuffs, and we have seen how annoying this kind of effect can be on Legendary Chrom. He also has a similar effect on his weapon, but here the only condition that Edelgard has to meet is not be near any kind of ally, and that's generally the theme with her base kit. She's taking social distancing really seriously. So Amir is a pretty nice weapon because it can stop enemies' follow-up attacks, and that's a big thing because I feel like she's gonna be super slow, so denying those follow-up attacks of the foes is super important. But then again, null follow-up is a skill which is used a lot and is rather common, I would say. So still, you know, she's gonna be having trouble against those kinds of units. Bonfire is her special. Attack rest solo. Even though she doesn't really have a distant counter weapon, I kind of get the significance of having resistance to fight the dragons. And her slot B skill is the combat art that you get out of Amir in 3 houses. Absolutely broken combat art. You can basically one-turn any kind of map with Edelgard using it, but in Heroes it's a bit balanced and you could use it only 1 per turn. So if unit initiates combat, it grants another action to her if she's not adjacent to any kind of ally after the combat. So once again, she has to be alone, and she has to do this in player phase. In enemy phase, this skill is absolutely worthless, so it can only be used once per turn, and if a skill that moves unit after the combat is used, then it references unit's position after that movement occurs. I think that this is kind of like reference to the Rooker Siege specials, and also if you use her with someone like Layla. And I don't think it's the fact that we're getting hit and run or any of those movement secret seals, I think. And if the enemy is not a human, basically a dragon or a beast, then she gets a guaranteed follow-up attack, provided that she's not near an ally. So yeah, this is honestly a pretty good effect for the player phase, but completely dead weight in the enemy phase. This provides her with unconditional instant Gale Force, and it doesn't mention anywhere if it works with Gale Force or not, or if Gale Force is allowed or not, because if Gale Force is allowed, what you could do is just attack someone. She's probably going to be having high enough attack to one-shot a lot of squishy units. She gets Raging Storm, she can act again, and then she attacks another enemy and triggers her Gale Force and attacks another enemy. So she could basically attack 3 enemies at the same time, which is pretty like insane, because if they wanted, they could have easily mentioned that this doesn't work, or like she's not allowed to use Gale Force, and she can only act again once per turn. So I feel like we'll have to see and test if this works out or not, because if it doesn't work out, it still has its usage, but then it's not really all that good, because you could easily run other Gale Force units who have got auto doubles. Like normal Edelgard herself, she has got an auto double on her weapon, so she's able to Gale Force by attacking twice, and many times you would need to attack twice for taking out some really bulky units. Edelgard is probably not going to be having enough speed to double naturally, and obviously she doesn't have the space to run something like Bull Fighter, so we'll have to see. if this works with Gale Force or not, because if it works with Gale Force, I feel like she has got a lot of potential in Ether Raids then, because you just run a level 6 Bolt Tower in Ether Raids, just push down your opponent's HP to low, Edelgard goes in there, and if you're running something like Heavy Blaze Slaughter skill and Quick Unpulse, then Gale Force becomes a 4-turn cooldown special. So she takes out 2 enemies, triggers her Gale Force, and then takes out the 3rd enemy as well. So that's something that could be possible and honestly could be pretty disgusting. So that could be done, and she could be paired up with someone like Veluria, or you could just run Heavy Blade Sacred Seal, or even Heavy Blade 4 Slaughter skill, because I believe that she's going to be having high enough attack. So like you could do that. So we'll have to see how this turns out. I gave you my explanation for both of these scenarios. So if you watch this in future, you could still, get that. And this being a slot-based skill is not really all that good in my opinion, because it blocks her from using stuff like Special Fighter, Bold Fighter, or Vengeful Fighter. Vengeful Fighter could like combo pretty well with Amir because it basically becomes an Omni Breaker effect. And Special Fighter, of course, combined with Quick Riposte, could be really nice if you went for a distant counter enemy phase skill set. So Raging Storm is pretty interesting, but then again, as I said, there are a lot of units who could trigger Gale Force pretty comfortably and consistently, even without a skill like this. And normal Edelgard is just an example of that. We don't even have to go any far to compare it. And Armored Stride is a Slotsy skill, so this is a new kind of skill, which is basically a solo armor march. You need to not be adjacent to any ally to get extra 1 space movement. And I feel like this is pretty niche. This is not really all that broken. You don't really see armor units being like away from allies that much because of their movement. They usually stick around and trail behind. So in that case, it could be kind of annoying to trigger this kind of effect. But this is a pretty good skill for someone like Edelgard who really takes social distancing seriously, along with Christmas Ephraim, of course. So for those units, it's going to be a pretty nice thing, and this can be pretty annoying in Arena or Arena Assault if Wales decide to run this kind of skill on their units, because imagine having like a last unit left, which is like a Valentine Fae, and she's got Armored Stride, so she would have massive movement, and it's kind of annoying to deal with her. So I feel like that could be a pretty cheeky thing to do. So here she is going to be attacking this Lance Flyer and taking this guy out, and then she's going to be shown pair up with Middle Violet. And here she is facing a Manakite, so she can double. And here she's going to be triggering her Bonfire, so we could calculate a bit of thing. And she's just going to be taking out this blue Manakite, getting 20 extra damage from Bonfire. And these are the stats I'm expecting on her. So we see 45 HP, I'm expecting 41 attack on her. Really low speed, high defense around 40 or even 39 actually, because she does get extra stats from Male Violet being a pair-up cohort. So that could be a thing. And like Faye does round up things, so she could have even 39 defense, and I think she's gonna be having like high resistance in general, so she's gonna be a pretty standard armor unit. I feel like with how her base kit speaks, just focusing on attack, defense, and resistance, and not really caring about speed. She's gonna be having the dual effect, so I think she's probably gonna be having 185 BST with that dual effect, and if they want, they could straight up just make her a 185 BST unit. And Edelgard actually does increase the score ceiling because she can basically be a unit who can reach the highest score in the game because of the fact that she has got a 300 SP slot B skill. So you could have 300 SP slot A and slot C skill and have a high scoring special like Ether Gale Force and any rally up or rally plus skill. And she would like have 758 arena score from what I calculated. So Wales are pretty much going to be going for her because she is the max scoring unit in arena. And because of her like score potential, she's just a in general good unit to go for if you are a whale, that is. So expect to see Edelgard all the time if it's fire season. She's going to be pretty prevalent, but I don't think she's going to be that hard to take on compared to someone like Legendary Chrom, Legendary Leaf, or the annoyance which Legendary Azura can cause. So overall, I don't think Edelgard is that broken of a unit. We have a lot of X armor units, and she tries to be a player phase armor unit. And I feel like player phase isn't really the best area for a armor unit, especially a melee armor unit to specialize in. If you're a range armor unit like Valentine Fae or something like that, then sure, you have extra bit of range. But if you're a melee armor unit, then player phase is not the best thing, but Edelgard still is trying to be unique and can do stuff in player phase by having that unconditional instant Gale Force. And we'll have to see if it works with Gale Force or not, because if it does, then as I said, there is a lot of potential right there. Obviously, if you do like her a lot, then you should go for her, but in my opinion, she's not the most broken legendary hero unit that we have got, and definitely not a must-have to have unless you really take Allegiance battles and Arena seriously, then yeah, getting a fire pair-up Legendary Hero would be nice. And the fire weeks are going to be coming up, so it could help you right there. And now let's move on to the other arenas that we have on this banner. So we have got Legendary Ryoma firstly, and Legendary Ryoma needs a lot of help. Like, he's not cutting it at this moment in the game. So he cannot really function in the enemy phase despite having a distant counter weapon because his bulk is not enough. And if you're speaking of player phase, then there are other sword flyers which can do the stuff like Shida or Elincia or even Summer Fiora, because she only has 2 less attack, defense, and speed compared to Legendary Ryoma. And as it is, a lot of people just remove Ryoma's legendary weapon for something like Slaying Edge, Armor Smasher, or even Fire Sweep Sword. So a lot of times, like, people are not going to be using Raijinto because he doesn't make the best use of it, and there's definitely alternatives to a sword flyer. And of course, Tibarn is also a flyer who could do the whole player phase thing. Bushido just doesn't cut it. It just gives you plus and special damage. That's basically it. I mean, I get that flyers don't really have the best slot B skills, and Bushido doesn't really eat up any kind of slot, but still, like, he could run something like Desperation in exchange of this because his bulk isn't the best. And overall, like, Ryoma needs big help and some kind of weapon refine or something. You could use him for Arena because he's a water legendary hero, but for the max score, you would need red dual flying. And if you need a water legendary hero, then Legendary Chrom is a better unit to go after, and I feel like blue color will provide you with better value than red color in general if you just summon on it. As for Frauder, he only gives you guidance, which is a sacred seal. So if you want to run guidance in slot C, then he is the man, but that's basically it. Then we have got Legendary Marth. So Legendary Marth is one of the better sword infantry units that we have got, and he has got bonus doubler built into his weapon, which is really good, and he is also having dragon effectiveness with binding shield. So that makes him really helpful in Arena Assault, just slaying any kind of full dragon team. Legendary Roy is another competitor because he already has a bonus doubler as his slotted skill and has got a distant counter weapon that's also effective on dragons, similar to Marth. But he doesn't have Binding Shield of Marth and has Human Virtue as another support skill. So both of them have their own thing, but they are pretty similar in general and good sword infantry units. For fodder, he has got absolutely nothing. Infantry Flash, I don't think, is a very good skill. Hrid's weapon is pretty cool. It works on penalties present on the foe, and it's pretty easy to get a debuff on a foe. So if his weapon is active, then he gets a guaranteed follow-up attack, and the foe cannot make a follow-up attack. So that is a really good effect, and he can work as a Gale Force unit because of that. But when it comes to being a Gale Force unit, I feel like normal Eliwood is just a much better and consistent unit, and it doesn't require Heavy Blade Sacred Seal to function as a Gale Force unit, unlike Hrid. And Eliwood is also easily mergeable, blessable, can be used anytime, anywhere. And like Hrid can be used as a wind hero in Arena, but he doesn't score all that good. And he can also work as a tank in the enemy phase, but in general, like, Cavaliers don't work the best as tanks because of their limited BST and the skills which they can inherit. Freezing Seal, in my opinion, is a bit of an outdated skill at this point because of Temari Plus. So Temari Plus is a dagger that could be inherited on any kind of high resistance unit, especially on Tethys, who's a high resistance dancer who provides dance utility and can also provide the Temari Plus debuff. And Hrid's Freezing Seal is only going to be targeting the unit who has got the lowest resistance out of foe's team. However, Temari's effect is way more flexible, and it can affect multiple foes for -5 attack and speed debuff. So yeah, I feel like this is a bit outdated slot B skill, and he could definitely use something like Desperation if he's functioning in player phase, or just run Quick Riposte if he's functioning in the enemy phase. As for fodder, the only thing he has got is this encounter, and he is the best quote-unquote fodder unit out of the red pool. But if you want to get this encounter, green pool is better because it has got Nagi, and you just get much better value in terms of units. It's been over a year since AR has been released, and she's still a really solid unit, a very solid offensive mythic hero who provides resistance. So she could be used with a lot of tanks to boost up their resistance, and Sparkling Boost is also pretty helpful to tanks to recover HP every turn. And in general, as a combat unit, she's pretty solid because of Lithiaburg and Mystic Boost. So overall, a really good unit, and there are a lot of strats which can be used with her. She can also work as a nice support unit, providing you healing, resistance with her mythic effect, and she can also work out as an offensive unit with a strategy called Air Force, where you basically have air with Fury and Disarm Trap. Disarm Trap allows you to just run over traps and snipe units. So you basically attack with her, take Fury damage, have a Dancer Refresher, then she attacks another unit, and then she's gonna be in the threshold where she is gonna be in Wings of Mercy range, so other Gale Force unit could just teleport and sweep up the opponent's team, so that could be done in something like Aetherids, of course. In Arena Assault, she could work against some dragons because of Mystic Boost, of course, and in Mjolnir Strike, she doesn't really score all that well because we don't really have colorless dual flying, so she's not really able to get her max score. As for fodder, she only has Mystic Boost, and I feel like there are a lot of really good slot B skills, especially now that we have got a lot of Leld skills going on. That slot B is pretty competitive, and Mystic Boost is only really useful to a couple of units who want to have longevity or who just want to not really care about dragons. And at this point, dragons aren't really the hardest thing to take on because we have got so many Dragon Slayers and stuff, but still, it does have its usage. We already get 1 free air and 1 free peony, but if you get more air, you could just merge her for more lift gain, or you could just run double air if you're using a tank and you would like more resistance. Unlike air, Naga isn't really that good of an offensive mythic unit because she's a melee range unit and her stats aren't really all that stellar. She's not the best combat unit and she's not the best support unit, and it's kind of pain to use her in Astro Season actually, and I feel like defense buff which she gives isn't really as useful as resistance buff which air gives or attack buff which Altina can give. But nonetheless, she does have her value inherently because of being an Astro Mythic hero, so she could help you get more lift in Ether raids, and Divine Fang does give you the Dragon Slaying effect, and it's pretty useful to just take out Duma with because he is going to be present all the time in the Astro season. And speaking of being present all the time, Thrasier is also a unit who's present a lot of times, and she just eats Naga alive for breakfast because of her dragon effectiveness and color advantage. So Naga can be a pretty hard unit to use in Ether raids because Ether raids is all about mobility. You want to have movement, you want to have range so that you could take out the structures, you could get the Ether raids pots, you could snipe the opponent's units, and Naga, compared to someone like Air or Peony, doesn't really do that all that much. The best use you could make out of her is run like a double shield skill or just make her into a smite bot with a link skill, and of course run life and death or fortress defense res depending on which shield skills you want to absorb. So Naga could be useful in that regard for soaking some shield skills for her main units, and she doesn't have anything for fodder. The Ether Raid's offense skills are just a joke in slot A. You should definitely not run that. Extra merges are going to be getting you more lift, and in Mjolnir Strike you could run blue dual flying for her from a Legendary Azura so that she could be useful in Astro Major Season. Nagi is a pretty solid dragon with good bulk, and Ethereal Breath gives her -1 special trigger cooldown, so Soul becomes a 2-turn cooldown special. So basically she could run any kind of 3-turn cooldown special and retaliate back with it instantly thanks to Special Fighter in the enemy phase. And her weapon gives her effective damage against dragons, and it also grants her weapon triangle advantage against colorless foes, and it also reduces damage from AoE specials by 80%. So that is pretty good. You could be using her as a counter pick against teams which have got Ophelia or just a lot of colorless archers, where she would just tank everyone. And in general, like, she is pretty nice as a counter pick for that, but still someone like Legendary Alm can shred her. I have definitely used Legendary Alm on my Ether Raids defense team, and I have faced a couple of Nagis who tried to tank my entire team, and Legendary Alm can still just kill her if he's on an Infantry Bolt's team, because he would just attack with a special and he cuts through the defense, so he could still do a number to Nagi, and Nagi is usually going to be running distant counter in slot A and not Triangle at depth, which could make her match up better against someone like Legendary Alm. But that's basically it. Against like really well-made teams, don't really expect Nagi to sweep the entire Ether Raids defense team because there's definitely going to be a mixture of colors and overlapping ranges. So Nagi could struggle, and of course because she's a dragon unit, she does have the dragon and also the armor weakness, but still she can be pretty useful as a tank and pretty useful in Arena Assault as well because of her effective damage against dragons, and of course having weapon triangle advantage against colorless foes. So against someone like Legendary Leaf, she could easily just bait him out and just take him out swiftly. Her fodder potential is really good. You could inherit distant counter and special fighter at the same time, so she provides you with a lot of value if you do want to get distant counter. Silque is a pretty unique healer in the sense that she's quite bulky. However, she's super slow, so she's gonna get doubled by pretty much everyone. And even though she's quite bulky, she doesn't really have the mobility or the utility of a flying healer or a cavalry healer, but nonetheless she's quite unique because of her stat spread. And she does come with nice fodder in the form of Melancholy Plus, So it's a really good weapon to be used in Arena Assault because so many units use special accelerating skills there. So this kind of melancholy effect is gonna be pretty useful where you inflict the AoE guard status on them and their allies and also reset their special cooldown. So that could be super useful. And this could also be used in ether raids where you could have this as a counterpick against infantry pulse teams. But healers are not really the best for hit and run strategies like that because they lack the option to have a movement assist skill like reposition or drop back. So it will be hard for them to get back. Having a cavalry healer does make it a bit better though. And you cannot really inherit Melancholy Plus and Dazzling Staff at the same time unfortunately, so that's a big bummer. And then we have got Duo Ephraim. Duo Ephraim is an absolutely insane unit. And I'm so happy they're finally getting a rerun because so many people really wanted to pull for them. So Regen Leaf is effective on both armored units and cavalry units. And it does give them +3 attack and auto follow up if they just have more attack than the foe. Or if they have any kind of visible status on them. So that is a very flexible condition to trigger and it's extremely easy to do that. So unlike some of the other Ephraims, they can still just stay near their allies, get the support from drive skills and stuff like that, and still get the auto double. And overall, Ephraim's stat spread is extremely solid, having high defense and really high attack with a dual effective weapon is super good. And he can function as a Gale Force unit because of having Heavy Blade 4 and Slot A. And like he's so powerful enough already with the dual effectiveness and his attack that he doesn't really need the special a lot of times to take out the enemy, so it could work out as a Gale Force unit. Low attack defense is also extremely good. As for fodder, both of those skills can be inherited at the same time. Their duo effect gives +1 movement to infantry and armored allies within 2 spaces, so it's pretty nice for mobility. Overall, Duo Ephraim is a really good unit and a really good fodder. Larum is one of the dancers which doesn't really stand out all that much, and she already has a very direct competition in the normal summoning pool in the form of Tethys. Tethys is way better than Larum, mainly because of the fact that she's got higher resistance, so she can run Temari Plus and provide the debuffs to your teammates, while also providing you with the dance utility, so she's absolutely fantastic, easily mergeable. Larum on the other hand doesn't really bring too much to the table with her stat spread. She can only soak like chilled speed and that's basically it because of her already high speed. So she's really not that good as a dancer. And someone like Tethys in my opinion just outclasses her role. And if you want to use her similar to Tethys, then you would require a lot of merges and investment on her, which is usually not really worth it. As for fodder, she brings way more to the table because she's got Dragon Slasher Plus, which is basically Cloud Mayogi, so it does have inbuilt Hardy Bearing, which is super useful in Ether Raid's defense because you want to have checks to vantage strategies, and in general it's having dragon effective damage, so you could just give it to any kind of powerful like dagger unit. And Disarm Trap is also extremely good. As I explained before, Air Force strategy does require Disarm Trap, so Larum could be used with that. Not only that, there are other units like Kronia and Layla who can easily run Disarm Trap and not really miss out on much because their slot B skill is kind of open and they get a lot out of it because they can easily snipe units in the backline of a team, which could be problematic. But still, it's a niche skill which can only be used by units that you could count on one hand. Regardless, she does provide you with good fodder and both of those things, and you can get these two things from Divine Codes as well, but toilet papers are really hard to come by. Legendary Celica is an extremely powerful mage, and with her weapon she cuts through resistance of the foe, similar to how her husband cuts through defense with his weapon. But still, I feel like she's not really as big of a threat as Legendary Alm, because Legendary Alm is colorless and he just destroys everyone equally, and he doesn't really have any kind of weapon strangle disadvantage, and he also has Lunar Flash, which is not a special that Celica has got. Soul of Sophia is a really good slot B skill that she has got because it has got null follow up and also desperation. She faces a bit of competition from Thrasier, who does a similar role. Thrasier doesn't really have as high an attack as Celica, but still, Killing Intent is really potent because its desperation effect is easier to trigger and it also provides you with in-combat debuff. And Thrasier is overall going to be much useful in Ether Raids because she's a defense mythic unit, and also in Millionaire Strike because once again she's an anima unit, so she is going to be pretty useful there compared to someone like Legendary Celica. Nonetheless, Legendary Celica is still a very powerful unit. She also provides good fodder in form of Susparo 3 and Attack Speed Oath, which you could inherit at the same time if you do fodder off any unit who has got Susparo 2. So both of these skills are extremely useful for any kind of player face unit, and Attack Speed Oath does give you the self-sufficiency. Tsubasa is basically like a premium clear. She does have dual effectiveness on armored units and cavalry units. She just needs an ally to act in that turn, and then her weapon will activate and she'll get +6 attack and speed during combat, and basically the desperation effect. So her slot B is kind of open because of that, and she's just a very powerful unit in general because of that kind of effect. It's not really all that hard to trigger, and she's very fast, so she can easily double and make great use of that. Blade Session, in my opinion, isn't really that good of a skill, and the 2 other skills can be found on other units. And Tsubasa overall is one of the best lance flyers in the game. And those are the units we have on this banner. So now time for the final verdict. So the green pool is absolutely stacked on this banner with really good fodder and really good units. And after that, I would say that blue pool is pretty good because it does have duo Ephraim, who's really powerful. Tsubasa is a good unit, doesn't provide anything for fodder, and same goes for Naga. And red color is also pretty dud in providing any kind of fodder. Hrid is the only unit who's got distant counter, and colorless only provides value to specific people, either who want to have merges on air, or they want to have Larum's skill inheritance fodder, or they just want to get Silque for melancholy. And before you summon, just keep in mind that on Friday we're going to be getting a Golden Week banner, which is likely going to be a Hero Fest banner, so you should at least wait like 1 day after the release of this banner just to see what options you have got. If you like Edelgard, then of course it's a no-brainer summon for you to get her, but still you should watch out for that and do not summon on the day this banner comes out, at least in my opinion. Overall, this is a pretty decent legendary banner, not the most insane one or not the worst one. So that's gonna be it for my review. As always, thanks to all of my YouTube members who support me, and if you enjoyed this video, then please be sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me a lot, and make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can always get the updates to my videos whenever I upload, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Edelgard's willingness to be near any kind of ally from her skills. So that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.